Behavior therapy. We talked a lot about behaviorism early on. We talked about it extensively in the learning chapter, and it turns out you can apply it. You can apply it to problems that people have, and you can help people resolve problems that they have on a behavioral level. Sometimes our behavior is the issue. Sometimes when we correct a behavior, it makes a lot of other things better for us in our lives. So behaviorism had something to say in the treatment of all kinds of disorders. In fact, all the different therapies we have now, and there's well over 400 of them, hell, there's probably 500 by now, make use of all the tactics we're talking about now in different proportions and different emphases and different theoretical frameworks. But behavior is always part of it. There's nothing that we know about anybody without some kind of behavior. Right? Whether it's online behavior, posting stuff, or whether it's writing something down, that's a behavior. Whether it's telling me something, whether it's nonverbal behavior, behavior is what we do, and so understanding it at a deeper level is critical to any type of therapy. So we're looking now mostly at the principles of classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Well, those things hit on some big issues, right? We talk about phobias, for example, anxiety disorders, conditioned taste aversions. We can also talk about sex disorders and things of that nature, fetishism particularly. Social learning theory, the models that we grew up with, the models we provide to others, and how we learn through observation, how we learn through grasping information given to us by other people, to reduce or eliminate maladaptive behavior. Well, maladaptive behavior depends on your definition. Whether it's adaptive or maladaptive depends entirely on the situation. So we've already talked about systematic desensitization. I won't belabor this. This is a behavioristic therapy. It is now talked about in context of exposure therapy. Exposure therapy is a therapy of choice, empirically supported therapy for PTSD and all manner of anxiety disorders, especially phobias. Because what you do is you teach somebody the process that we went over. If you had come to that particular anxiety and stress seminar I gave, we teach people how to relax, because you can't be anxious and relaxed at the same time. And in teaching them to become relaxed, which is something most people don't realize they have control over, but you can learn to have control over, making themselves relaxed, we then would give them either imaginal exposure, meaning they would vividly imagine stimuli that they were fearful of, or we would do it in actual life, where you are then exposing them to the stimuli, previously neutral, that have come to evoke anxiety in them, to the point that you extinguish the anxiety reaction. Assuming that nothing really bad happens, and imaginally it won't happen. Although you can go too far too fast, you need to do it systematically. You can have people in a totally relaxed state imagine levels of fearful situations, starting off on a very low level until they're comfortable with that, move up just a notch until that's perfectly comfortable. And over time, several sessions perhaps, you can have it to where they can imagine vividly the thing that would have most scared them before, or most anxiety-provoking scene that they could have thought of. Now you've changed something. You've fundamentally changed something. And then you take that into the real world. So if a person was totally panicked to go into Walmart, for example, and there are people who have that as an issue, then you could teach them the relaxation process, and you could go through an imaginal scene where they see a TV commercial about Walmart and they relax while they do that. And they go scene after scene after scene in their mind until they can imagine themselves in the middle of the day in the busiest possible situation in that thing, and they're calm imagining it. Then you can move them to the real life thing where they don't go in. Maybe they just go to the parking lot and they sit there until they're calm and relaxed. Right? And then maybe they go in, but at night when there's few people there, right? For 5 minutes, 10 minutes, until they get to the point where they can actually achieve in life what they've achieved in mind. That works. It works well. Token economy. Well, I don't know what economy isn't token. If you think about our economies and we think about money, a lot of people think money's something real value in money. But money, it's just a piece of paper, if it's cash, or it's just a little piece of coin. The coins aren't even made of precious metals anymore, All right? They're too expensive to make the coins. So they're literally the kinds of tokens we used to pop into video games in my day. All right? You bought tokens and put the tokens in. Now the coins, the quarters, aren't worth a quarter. And pennies cost too much to make with copper because they cost way more than a penny a piece to make. So you got these tokens that then are used in trade. They are, you remember, I hope, secondary reinforcers, not primary reinforcers. But we have even beyond that now other systems. We got pieces of plastic that are tied electronically to little numbers in cyberspace on people's hard drives in different organizations. I don't see a paycheck. Numbers appear in my online account. And then I take a piece of plastic and I swipe it and numbers disappear from my online account. Bitcoin. Total virtual currency. It doesn't matter whether you use shells, right, as tokens, or whether you're bartering goods and services. What you have is essentially a scene set up in all humanity throughout all history where I can reward or reinforce a behavior or reinforce or reward somebody providing a service in exchange for some kind of token. Nobody had really hit on this until Nate Azrin and other people were working in mental institutions where people were there for long-term lockdown wards. Schizophrenia was the primary issue, and you had a lot of people, and I remember emphasizing this the other day. We were talking about, like, you had straitjackets, you had people tied to beds until you got things like Thorazine, chemical straitjackets to calm them down so they were more manageable. Well, they found that you could actually get people to behave in ways that were desirable by linking that to tokens. So you want people to get up in the morning, you want them to make their bed and attend to their hygiene and come out to the cafeteria and eat and then go to the group room and then show up at their therapy appointment on time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the ward determines what the rules are, and when people just do what they want them to do, they give them tokens, which then could be exchanged for things that patients wanted, like cigarettes or sodas or privileges, going off the locked ward for maybe a little bit longer television time, whatever the case may be. The person who was getting the tokens decided how they spent them. And if they engaged in behavior that was counterproductive to what the ward wanted, they would debit them. They would take away their tokens, so they would lose the opportunity to exchange these tokens for what they wanted. And what they found was ward behavior improved dramatically without chemicals, without straitjackets, just tying specific behaviors to specific outcomes increased desirable behaviors and decreased undesirable behaviors. Now you may say, well, I don't plan to work in a mental institution like that, but this works for life. If you might teach children in lower education, higher education, tokens work, right? Not for every kid. You can't just give every kid a gold star. Kids don't care about gold stars, won't be affected by that. But if you say X number of gold stars equals you get to pick this, or this, and they like any of those things, well, then they will work to accumulate stars. People say, well, that's just manipulating people. Well, hell yes it is. We do it all the time. All of us do. Doesn't your boss manipulate you into coming into work and doing all that work that you got to do so you can get some tokens at the end of the week so that you can go get the things you want, like go to the movies or pay the rent or eat some food? So you're basically applying economics at the behavioral level to any situation, and you want to do it carefully and with beneficence in mind. Not to penalize people, but to help them to achieve things they might not otherwise achieve. Work situations aren't always benevolent, but sometimes we endure them because we can't imagine being cut off from our tokens, because we'd go homeless if we didn't get them. So we take a lot of shit in some jobs so we get our tokens. Don't want to interrupt the supply. We need them. Different kinds. That's all we're talking about. Using virtual tokens or star systems or whatever you want to do. Aversive conditioning, we've talked about a little bit. It's what happens with conditioned taste aversion, for example. When somebody drinks way too much and starts vomiting, the next time they smell that liquor or whatever it was that made them sick, right, they have that little involuntary aversive reaction, and they don't want it. Whether they got food poisoning, next time they smell that food or see that food, they're like, I don't really want that. So they become averse to it. They don't want it anymore. Well, that very principle could be applied to help people get over certain kinds of behaviors or fantasy desires, as it were. So you look at classical conditioning here as a treatment where you want to pair repeatedly whatever the undesired behavior is with a really aversive stimulus to decrease the behavior's reward value and to increase its punishment. Thinking about it brings bad things. You lose good things. So you're less likely to do those things. Done correctly, punishment works. We gave some rules for punishment before about how you want to use the lowest desirable, the lowest effective level possible, while also reinforcing desirable behaviors, also giving people clear rules and boundaries about when and how punishments would be enforced, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all still standing, but in these cases we have people with specialized issues coming in for help. And Clockwork Orange is a dated movie, and I used to say, you need to be careful because it can be offensive. There's rape and murder in it. They're integral to what the plot of the movie is. However, by today's standards, it's kind of passé. Today's slasher movies and things like that make this look really kind of soft in comparison. The key here is what they try to do is take behaviorism to its logical extreme. It's a parody of behaviorism. It's looking at a guy who's a criminal, been a criminal since he was young, and now he's committed a horrible crime, and they think they can make it such that if he even thinks about committing a crime, he'll start retching and vomiting and he won't do it anymore. And so it's a fictionalized account of what this might do. But in reality, you can have this stuff work. For example, a drug called Antabuse is used for people who want to quit drinking alcohol. Now, I just saw on one of those morning shows this morning, I think it was in Norway, somewhere in Europe, where they're having people who are alcoholics clean up the streets, clean up litter to get beers. And people are like, well, that's ridiculous, giving them beers. Well, they would be drinking all day, theoretically, if they could get the money, but by doing this, they actually engage in a proactive activity all day while they are then monitored how much their alcohol intake is, and it helps them get off the street, it helps them get fed, and you know what happens when you don't do this? These people are homeless anyway. They were homeless and drinking, and that's how bad alcohol got for them. Alcohol and other drugs can destroy people's lives utterly. So, if you got that kind of a risk, taking some other risks to try to make that better might make some sense. So aversive conditioning, in this case, Antabuse, is a drug that if you take it and you drink within the period of effectiveness of the dosage, you will be violently ill. You will get nasty sick. You will be retching and nauseous and vomiting. So most people actually use it as a preventative, meaning they know that they're taking it, and you got to be careful because other kinds of alcohol exist in your environment that you may not think about as drinking, like in mouthwash, for instance, or hairspray. Transdermal alcohol going through the skin can also cause you to retch. So people who take it have to be very careful not to expose themselves to any kinds of alcohol. But if you took it, it'd be a pretty good disincentive to drink because you know that there's nothing you could drink that wouldn't make you retch. If you were using it, though, in strict classical conditioning aversive treatment paradigm, what you would want to do, though, is actually drink. You would want to drink. If your thing is brown liquor and that's what you drink, then taking this and drinking brown liquor will make you nasty sick, such that the next time you smell it, you probably won't want it. And then in which case you better do what? Move to another kind of alcohol-based drink, right? And another kind, because you know from classical conditioning, it's not the brown liquid that made you sick. It was the alcohol in the liquid. And it's dissimilar enough from, say, a wine cooler or a wine or a beer that you won't have that retching effect and you can still consume alcohol in those other forms. But if you've progressed through all of the types of alcohol, you can make it so you really, really didn't want to drink. I used aversive conditioning to quit smoking cigars. Now, I quit smoking cigarettes a long time ago, but there was a period when I moved up here, where I brought my family here, and I still lived in Memphis, and with nobody around, I like a good cigar every now and then. And I smoke a cigar, drive around in my car, listening to Ozzy Osbourne, because that's the only CD I had in my old car. I'd smoke my cigar, and I smoked my cigar the next night, just one a night. Didn't seem like a big deal. And then I moved up here, and I didn't want to smoke cigars anymore, but what I felt was a powerful urge to go buy more cigars. And anytime I listen to that Ozzy CD, guess what? I want to smoke a cigar. That craving comes back. That particular CD, not just any of them. Those particular previously neutral stimuli now cause me to go through a little minor withdrawal syndrome that makes me crave having a cigar. But what I wanted was to not be addicted to a new tobacco product. And so what I did is I went and bought me one more cigar and I huffed it. Until I got nicotine poisoning and about threw up. And then I didn't want cigars anymore. Because I did engage in aversive conditioning, and guess what? It works. So if you can get yourself around that possibility, it works because we already know it works. You don't need to know this for your test, but before aversive conditioning, you got your nausea-inducing drug, it'll cause nausea. Now you had your previously neutral stimulus, which was alcohol, which caused pleasurable effects, plus your nausea-inducing drug, and you get the unconditioned response of nausea from that nausea-inducing drug. Afterwards, drinking alcohol causes nausea such that you're less likely to want to drink alcohol.